Hello and welcome to the British and Irish Eagles podcast presented by Phillies Sports International. That feels strange for me to say 10 days after our official launch. I have to remember which name goes first, which name goes above the other, but we are now officially Phillies Sports International and the British and Irish Eagles podcast, which is hugely exciting. The website is now live, people flooding in, subscribing. We've got events loaded up, people RSVPing, buying tickets, which we'll get into competitions shortly, and just general interactivity, easy for me to say, and it's been going well, guys. I'm joined by Tony and Mick today because Liam has now finally completed his official permanent move to the United States, posting pictures of the nice big TV that he has clearly been granted, loaned. I don't know if they've gone out with the Amex today and just splurged on furnishing their new apartment, house, or whatever they're in. But they've arrived safely, so I'm sure not before long we'll have Liam back hosting the pod, telling us all about how his move is going. But like I said, for now, Tony and Mick joining me, which is, I'm not sure how many times we've had this threesome together. This arrangement, this menage a trois of Scottish English loving guys. But Tony, you've had a bit of a busy time of it, so nice to have you back. Mick, always good to have you on the pod. We know how difficult things are to get on, but Tony, how good does it feel to be back and have a little bit more free time to spend on the birds?
It's superb, Phil. Although the prospect of you, me, and Mick as a threesome is not how my fantasies normally play out. It's great to be back. This is the first time I've been back on since we became PSI, which is all incredibly exciting. The amount of work that you guys have put in, and Dave and Ben and Liam has just been absolutely superb. And all I can do is apologise and thank you guys greatly. Work's been an absolute nightmare over the course of the last few weeks and months. Some pretty challenging times in the drinks industry, but thankfully we're coming through it and we're doing okay. No doubt there'll be a few tough times ahead, but I think everyone in the industry is experiencing that. So I guess the message to you guys is you need to start drinking some more whiskey. There you go, Mick.
Orders going in shortly. Don't worry, Tony.
Supporting the cause, loving it. But absolutely delighted to be here. I love being on the pod. I love being part of PSI and the British and Irish Eagles. Such a great distraction from day-to-day life, and it's 126 days to the start of the NFL season. Just 126 days.
Just 120.
So we're getting there slowly but surely. It's felt like a marathon to get to where we are. No doubt the rest of it will feel exactly the same. But here we are again. Delighted to be here. Delighted to be back. And Mick, how you doing, my man?
Oh man, I'm relieved that the draft is over. To be honest with you, Tony, I've been spilling over all of these guys, all the prospects, doing all the social media stuff, posting draft reactions of day 1, day 2, day 3, seeing who's best available, doing videos, all the rest of it, doing podcasts, everything since December, all the way through to the end of April. And I'm now at the point where we know who we've picked. We've got 10 prospects to go over, or 10 new Eagles members to go over, and I can be safe in the knowledge that it's over and I can relax with a lovely whiskey.
Yeah, the off season hasn't been quite the break for Mick that it maybe has been for the rest of us in terms of British and Irish Eagles and Phillies Sports. I know we've been busy in various different guises, but yeah, Mick's been holding the fort on the podcast front with the fantastic Road to the Draft series of podcasts, which I was fortunate to be part of for a few of them. But fantastic to have those kinds of insights into players and, you know, the top 30 visits, which ironically this year didn't appear to be as fruitful as. Why did we even bother doing that? Why did yeah, Mick spent time For those that are on the website, have seen the article. Mick spent time meticulously tracking all the top 30 visits for the players to the Eagles, only to find out that we didn't pick a single one from that list. So clearly Howie has clocked on to the fact that people realise that that's the best way to find out what the Eagles are doing. So what does Howie do when people start to figure him out? He goes the other way. He zigs when people zag, and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's great news, great stuff, guys. Glad to have you all back on and have a little bit of a dynamic shift with the new website and everything that's going on. Super exciting. But we are here for a draft recap podcast, but there are a couple more points just to get through. One particularly exciting point, which is the early bird raffle. So for those that have seen on our social media pages, website, WhatsApp groups, whatever, we decided to gather collectively from all corners of the Philadelphia sports spectrum some incredible prizes. One piece particularly being donated by our very own Mick McGivern, a signed Brandon Graham jersey. The Philly, UK Dave at the UK Phillies has donated some swag that he's been kindly given by the Phillies. We've got a Jordan Spector print that was signed by Jordan Spector himself of Bryce Harper for the London Games print that he did, which is an incredible piece of artwork. I mean, if you can see over my shoulder, I've got a version of his Jason Kelsey Super Bowl. Well, I guess I don't know if it was a retirement one or just before his retirement, but it feels very fitting now that he's retirement that I've got many versions of his face plastered on my wall. But you can get a Bryce Harper print, like I said. There's a 76ers opening day t-shirt from this season. And Passyunk Avenue, one of our other sponsors outside of Loch Lomond, also have kindly donated a couple of love bundles and a couple of t-shirts. So all in all, 9 prizes. I think that works out well because there's 2 t-shirts, 2 love bundles, amongst everything else. I think there's 9 prizes. So we're going to be drawing 9 winners. Either way, we're going to be drawing in reverse order, so we're not going to miss out on drawing out each name. Prizes leading up to the most prestigious prize, which is the signed Brandon Graham jersey, which I think we all agree is the most lucrative one. But we'll go in order and we'll draw out the names, courtesy of my fantastic wheel of names. So for those who are watching the video or watching on YouTube, can see that I've got a wonderful spinning random wheel of names. And for those listening, we'll have to do our best to commentate on this colourful wheel as it rotates around and selects our name. So we've got 100 tickets were purchased by various new signing up members to Philly Sports International. The entry closed about a couple hours ago. We have 100 tickets, like I said, and each person who's bought multiple tickets has got their name in as many times as they bought tickets, for anyone wondering. So there is one person who's bought 10 tickets, so I do feel sorry if he doesn't get one prize at all, because he's certainly given himself a 10% chance of winning. So without further ado, let's draw some names. So first off, we're going to award a couple of Passyunk t-shirts. So Mick, if you could kindly do me the honours and just note down who gets paired with what prize while I work my magic, then we can sort out these prizes and get them dispatched to you as soon as possible. So first name off the board is Mike Sewell.
Hey, well done, Mike. Well done, Mike. Is that a Passyunk t-shirt coming his way?
That's a Passyunk t-shirt coming his way. So we'll remove that one and go again for the second Passyunk t-shirt. And the second Passyunk t-shirt goes to Adrian Kenny.
Adrian
So now we're going
Kenny,
to move on. Yeah, move on to 2 love bundles. Next person off the list for the first love bundle.
Come on.
I mean, if you haven't ordered
something,
if you haven't ordered a love bundle from Passyunk, if you haven't been to Passyunk and you can't get there, no way!
Yes!
Respin. That's a respin.
Well, as I was going to say, for those that can't get to Passyunk Avenue, particularly people that might be living in Scotland, like our own Tony Brewerton, who's just won the first Passyunk Love Bundle, it's as close as you're going to get, and it's not a bad substitute for being at the branches yourself. But Tony, you're going to enjoy that, mate. We'll get that sorted out with you shortly. And for the second Love Bundle, the winner is Dan Webster. Love Bundle from Passyunk Avenue on its way to you. We'll get in touch and we'll find out exactly which bundle you want and get that dispatched courtesy of Gaz from Passyunk. Okay, so that's the Passyunk prizes done. Next on the list is the Sixers opening day T-shirt.
Oh, very nice.
Gregor Thompson, you have won the 76ers opening day T-shirt, brought back kindly by one of the PSI 76ers members and donated for this cause, so enjoy that. Next, we are on to the Phillies bundle that Dave has kindly donated, which includes a beanie, a bucket hat, a magnet with the schedule on it, and a Phillies T-shirt, and that is going to Stuart Stevenson.
Well done, Stuart.
Well done, Stuart. So that's going to go on to you.
Very, very jealous. Those Phillies.
A very nice bundle.
Awesome.
So we are now into the top three prizes, and the first prize is... Oh, no, sorry, the final two prizes, I beg your pardon. So the next one, the penultimate prize, is the Jordan Spector signed Bryce Harper London Series print that's been kindly donated by the British Irish Eagles, but I think particularly Liam and Katie have donated to that cause. So who's going to be the winner of this one? Matt Mills. What a print.
And you go, Mills.
Jealous of that one.
That guy wins everything. I swear he's cleared me out about 17 cases of gin and whiskey, that guy.
Yeah.
Well done, Matt. Well done, mate.
Well done, Matt. So finally, the final prize, the ultimate signed Brandon Graham jersey, framed jersey, I might add, donated by our Mick McGibbon. Macaulay Hurst Billett. Well done. You won the signed Brandon framed jersey. Well done. So that's the raffle sorted. We'll get those prizes sorted out. We'll contact the individual people via email and WhatsApp if they're in the WhatsApp groups, and get confirmation of addresses and of where we want to send it stuff to, and obviously give them a huge congratulations and get some social media posts out soon. Right, that's that bit done. So let's move back into Eagles news and Eagles situation. There's one bit of particular Eagles news which we're going to talk about, which is Jordan Davis's 5th-year option has been exercised by the Eagles. So for those that don't know, it's the option you get with first-round draft picks, allowing you to get them for an extra year on a cheap deal, which obviously, given the fact that first-round picks tend to be elite players and will command big contracts, is a nice option that teams use when they're sort of keen to keep them around for a bit longer. Now, it ensures he's going to be with the team through 2026, and it's a $13 million fully guaranteed salary. So given that he's not exactly lived up to the first-round hype, I think he's certainly been surpassed by his fellow Georgia Bulldog and Jalen Carter the following year, getting drafted in the first round. You know, he ran that super fast 40-yard dash in his combine, which probably is what got him drafted by the Eagles. Hasn't quite lived up to it. It's never really played a number of snaps that is considered normal. It's always been quite a low snap count, particularly last season. It was 37% of snaps, which is not good for a first-round defensive tackle. Although he did have a sort of a good Super Bowl, obviously a very good Super Bowl. It resulted in a forced fumble recovery, a sack and 2 pass deflections in that with 27 tackles. in 2024. 2023, 45 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 1 pass deflection, 4 forced fumbles. They're not stats that set the world alight, guys. But in general, Tony, I'll come to you first. Do you think it's a good move? Do you think it's the right thing to do? And also, what do you think that it means in terms of Davis's future this season and beyond?
I think it's a good move, but just to touch on the enigma that I think is Jordan Davis. You know, I watching Eagles games. I kind of want him to be. I want him to be on the field, particularly when we're defending the run. But I cannot quite fathom why he has not got himself together to either be fit enough, whether that's mentally, whether that's physically, to be at least a 3-down defensive lineman. The Eagles, to an extent, have had a bit of an embarrassment of riches on the defensive line, but still, when you're drafted in the first round, there is a huge weight of expectation on your shoulders. I will never be able to understand why these guys who there is a big weight of expectation on their shoulders can't just get themselves together. And I think this for Davis is not just a pivotal year, or this 2025 season that's approaching isn't just a pivotal year in his Eagles career, it's a pivotal year in his NFL career. Because if we are sitting here saying he's an enigma, and an enigma that we can't quite understand why he's not getting his self together to be able to play at least 3 downs, everybody else must be asking the same question as well. So make or break season for him. I think we've absolutely done the right thing. If he's going to have a breakout year, then we're on the right side of a contract to be able to support that breakout year. I'm a fan of Davis. I just can't quite understand why he's not necessarily living up to that weight of expectation that's on the guy's shoulders. But I'm glad that we've got him for another year.
Yeah, I think the Eagles wouldn't be keeping him around if they weren't convinced there was something there. It's definitely taken longer than it should for him to sort of start showing that potential. But obviously, the team believes in him, and I guess they've made the right decision. But Mick, what are your overall thoughts on the 5th-year option? Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I mean, I put it to the group the other day. Do you think the Eagles will pick up his 5th-year option or extend him? And it was about 50-50 split in the group on the poll, and I couldn't decide which way I wanted to go for it, because I feel like the way how he builds the roster, the way Eagles operate, they don't give all that guaranteed money. They like to manipulate the cap and make sure they're not putting too many eggs in one basket for a particular year, knowing that Jalen Carter's contract is looming. We're making roster cuts all over the place, trying to save money. We're possibly going to lose Goddard because of 14 million that's hanging over him, so some value like that. And then we're giving 13 million guaranteed to Jordan Davis, who you're saying is playing 30% of the snaps. So that feels a little bit weird to me. It doesn't seem like an Eagles move. I fully expected, or I feel like I expected some sort of contract to be negotiated with Jordan Davis's team and the Eagles to say, look, you've not met the expectation that we had on you in the first round. Would you be willing to accept a reduced offer, team-friendly deal sort of thing to extend you out for the next few seasons, keep you as an Eagle, because we like having you in the building. He's got a great character. He seems like a really nice, lovely guy. He gets along with his teammates. He's playing with all the rest of the Georgia Bulldogs. They all love him. So it seemed like a no-brainer for me, but this is the way it's going. So, I mean, so what? A deal can still be struck between now and this, as he plays out the 2026 season. So we'll see what that brings. But personally speaking, on draft night, I was over the moon when we took Jordan Davis, with a caveat that Kyle Hamilton was still on the board at the time, and I was still a bit annoyed about that. But I knew he was a monster coming out of Georgia, and I thought he was going to be absolutely wonderful player in the league. And I do remember saying at the time, just wait till Carter comes out because he's even better. And we managed to pick him up as well. And I thought, as a duo in the NFL, they two would just be like 1 and 2, and just a 1 and 2 man wrecking crew on the Eagles' front four. It's not really materialised with Jordan getting limited reps. I would like to see his pass rush tool belt extend a little bit. It's just not really there. I think Tony's right. He needs to have a really big season if he's going to earn any sort of extension that's billed higher than his current guaranteed money in 2026. You're on mute, son. Rookie mistake.
Well, I swear I don't. Oh yes, because I topped up my class in one the Clang, which kind of ruins that. Then, yeah, I was listening to PHL this morning, and Bo Wolf's on away at the moment. As Zach's leading the show, quite enjoying it actually. Zach Berman without Bo Wolf to detract from him every time he says something remotely innuendo like is quite actually makes for good listening sometimes. But anyway, they were talking about the 5th-year option, and I guess the way they summarized it up was that, you know, it's a small amount to pay compared to what you could have to pay if he does break out. If he doesn't break out, I guess you can still ship him with a 5th-year option on the board, and a new contract can be negotiated by someone who maybe thinks that it's worth taking a gamble on. But essentially, it's almost like it's better it's hedging your bets with him. They obviously see enough to think that they still believe there's something there, but obviously not convinced enough to maybe sort out a new contract immediately. So they just kicking the can down the road a little bit. It's probably more than what you could get if you signed a new rookie in a future draft pick and brought him in. But I guess he knows the system. He has played in Super Bowl. He's got the experience. He's just not quite living up to it. And I guess doing this also sends the message to the player that's like, we'll believe in you and we're giving you the maximum amount of time. We want you to achieve this. We want you to be successful. So, you know, if that doesn't work, then yeah, then they've tried everything and they've not necessarily missed out. You're right, Mick, about the money side of things. That doesn't really kind of make sense from an Eagles point of view, but maybe I'm pretty sure they've obviously done the numbers and realised that this is better than the alternative, and if it pays off, it will really pay off. So we'll see what happens with it. But yeah, I'm happy to have him in the building, but I definitely think it could have gone either way, and not many of us would have been surprised if it hadn't been exercised, because there's quite a few players. Quay Walker from the Packers today has not had his 5th-year option taken. You know, there's quite a lot of players out there that just don't. Depends on the situation and a few many other factors. But that's enough about Jordan Davis. I don't think there's any other news. So before we get into the draft picks themselves, I think it's time to do a Loch Lomond ad read.
Celebrate victories, rally through challenges, and bond with fellow fans as you toast with a dram of Loch Lomond single malt whisky. From tailgating gatherings to watch parties at home, Loch Lomond whisky becomes an essential companion, enhancing the moments that make football so extraordinary. It's the perfect accompaniment, from the joy of victory to the bittersweet moments of defeat. Loch Lomond offer a wide range of malts, with their flagship perfectly balanced, and signature expressions Inchmoan and Inchmuren to suit any taste palate. Celebrate greatness on and off the field this season with a perfect balance of Loch Lomond whisky and Eagles football. From the first pour to the crowd roar, fly Eagles fly.
Oh, I love that ad read. And yes, I definitely do need to order a new bottle of Loch Lomond whiskey very, very, very soon, Tony. So stand by for that one. Like I said, we're going to get into the Eagles draft now. And the Eagles started the draft with 8 picks. We ended up making 10 selections, as is Howie's way. It's never going to be 8 for 8. It's going to be 8 for however many picks he can trade back for at the time. And generally, I don't think that he had as much of an interest in this year's draft as he did definitely last year. He's definitely looking for the future with a lot of the picks, I think, and in particular looking at future drafts to maybe target the positions that we were sort of umming and ahhing about whether they would look at this year, particularly offensive tackle high up on the draft boards, which obviously what didn't end up being the case. We had a trade up in day one. We could have had an earlier trade up if GMs had not been putting Howie's number on the block list because apparently he was trying from about pick 20 to get Jihad Campbell. Had to wait until the Chiefs right before just to make sure we got a guy. You know, it's a joke about why you're trading up with the people in front of you just to end up taking the guy. But often there are teams probably calling, and you don't want to take that chance. If they've been trying for an hour, they'll take him by trading up one place. They did it with Carter 2 years before. So it's logical. They really like this guy. We'll get into Jihad in a second. But the defense definitely dominated all the selections, with all defenders been selected within the first 5 picks. Only a couple of offensive tackles taken later on. And looking at the conferences, we had 4 players from the SEC, 2 from Big Ten, 3 from the ACC, and 1 from Big 12. So fairly spread, but going obviously heavier from the top conferences. Interesting though, no skill players selected. We didn't take a running back or wide receiver, which you can argue is probably makes sense given that we were only going to be taking one as if I guess the right talent fell in a particular moment, which I don't think did on the night. Most of the wide receivers had already gone by the time we started getting into that position. But tight end is an interesting one, which we can talk about briefly, guys. Obviously, the situation with Dallas Goedert has now kind of changed post-draft through not taking the tight end. You know, the words that are coming out from the Eagles are now that we'd like to keep Dallas Goedert, which it kind of indicates exactly how the process went, which is we were looking to get rid of him until we couldn't find a suitable replacement. And now we're probably going to end up doing a similar situation to what we did with Josh Sweat, which is when you think he's going to go, he ends up coming back in on a reasonable deal for another year, at least. So, but just quickly touch on the tight end, Tony. Are you surprised that we didn't pick up a tight end? I know we had a couple of key talents. Harold Fannin Jr. was probably my one. He ended up going in front of the Eagles. I think there was another guy a little bit later on. Obviously, there's a couple of guys high up in the draft. The Penn State, Tyler Warren, going to the Colts. Colson Loveland going to the Bears. Are you surprised at how the tight end situation overall has developed since the draft, Tony?
Well, I'm really interested to get Mick's take on this because clearly Mick is our aficionado when it comes to who was on the board at specific times of picks. But I guess I wonder, clearly we can't go into the season with just Grant Calcaterra or Grant Calcaterra as our tight end one. So it makes you wonder, is it that we didn't find a suitable suitor to take Dallas Goedert and therefore be pivoted? Or was it that actually the way that the board fell, all the guys that we would have wanted at what Howie would have deemed to be a position of value or a pick of value to take a tight end? Mick, what was your take? Was there any point during the draft where you thought actually we could take a tight end here and that could see the exit of Goddard? Obviously after the Campbell pick, but you know, in rounds 2, 3, how was the board falling for you?
Yeah, it was quite interesting because first of all, Colson Loveland going ahead of Tyler Warren was a surprise on night one. With the Bears selection, but you know we were never going to take any of those guys. We were looking at more Mason Taylor, who we spoke to at the Combine, Terrence Ferguson, I think from Oregon. These guys went really early in round 2, but in the 10th and 14th pick, both of those players came off the board quite early, and then Arroyo came off just a few picks later as well. So there was a run on tight ends early in day 2 of the draft, and Howie was never going to get that high. I don't think he was prepared to trade up, not for the positional value and just because I don't think he wanted to give up any of his pick. He wasn't very aggressive in either of the days in day 2 or day 3. He traded back. He didn't trade up. He didn't look to move, or apart from the day 1 move up. He didn't seem to really try and package picks together, or it wasn't apparent that he was trying to do that, because normally you get something, you hear something through the grapevine that the Eagles are trying to trade up to here or there. None of that really came through in day 2 or day 3. And as I said, those 4 tight ends came off early day 2, and only really Harold Fannin was there at the start of the 3rd round. We could have taken him instead of Andrew Makuba. How he stays true to his board, I think. He just looked at positional value. It's a need. He doesn't like to draft for needs, but the safety is just a more valuable position piece for him. And then after that, there's quite a drop off on tight end. I just don't think the board fell that way, unfortunately, for us.
So Phil, right at the start of the pod, you asked the question, or you kind of posed the question. I'm not sure if the three of us have ever been on a pod together. I think there has been once, and actually we were talking about Dallas Goedert and what Dallas Goedert's future is in the team. And you asked both Mick and I the question, does Dallas Goedert get an extension at the end of next season? And we spoke about it being a pivotal season for him. And we used the famous Mick phrase that the best form of ability is availability. And I guess the same question poses now, but I'll pose it to the two of you. Is Dallas Goedert going to be playing for the Eagles at the start of the 2025 season? And if he does that yield a contract extension for him?
It feels like, given everything we've spoken about, and now is that we've kind of maybe painted ourselves into a corner a little bit. We've tried, but we've kind of not left with Dallas Goedert. Don't get me wrong. It feels like we're talking about him in such a derogatory nature of conversation, but he's still a good player when he's on the pitch. We still love him. He's still a great guy to have in the locker room. There's nothing wrong with him except for the fact that he's been not as available as he has been or could be over the last couple of seasons. So it feels like they were going to take I felt it was nailed on. They were going to take a tight end no matter what, but I think Mick's probably hammered the point quite accurately by saying it just wasn't there. And the appearance on Rich Eisen's show that Mick posted in the WhatsApp group earlier, which I watched. He bangs on about positional value, and I think you're right, Mick. He stays true. He's got his board. He's not going to budge. He's not going to reach, and that's exactly why we love him and we respect him as a GM, because in Howie we trust that is essentially what it is. We know that he's going to stay true to his, and it's going to he's going to ride or die with his decisions. And when it doesn't work, we know that there's a method to it. Whereas with other GMs, you can often say that they're the opposite end of the spectrum. And if I was sat as a fan of those teams going, I don't know what our GM's going to do. You look at the Falcons, are probably the prime example of that. They were all over the place on draft day. I mean, you can look at their draft and go, they did pretty well, but they gave up a lot of capital. They gave up their first next year. And you can also be, if we were on a Falcons podcast right now, we'd be going like, great draft, but shit, what if it doesn't work out? We're giving up a lot of stuff, and Howie is very, very resolute in that fact. So in Howie we trust, and we love you, Howie, for that respect. But yeah, it's we're gonna have to find something from somewhere, though. I think we can't stay what we are. We obviously is it Granson from the Colts that we brought into the tight end room.
Yeah.
And not really much else. Calcaterra, obviously, it's not a tight end room that's going to strike fear into the hearts of opposing defenses anytime soon. So there's obviously the rumors. I don't know, either one of you want to jump in, but I've not really heard anything more about trading for a tight end. There's been rumors about Michael Mayer, Cole Pitts, players of that ilk that have maybe not lived up to expectations in other teams. Is there a tight end out there that we might trade for?
It's not one that I could get particularly excited about. But we need to see what happens with post June 1st designations, and see if anyone falls out as a result of that. But I think that's probably a question for a future pod. But just Mick, quickly turning to you.
Yeah.
Is Goddard going to be on the team start the 2025 season?
It's such a need, isn't it? I think he will. Yeah. Fuck it, why not? Yeah, he will be on the team at the start of the 2025 season, but I don't think he's going to get extended. George Kittle just got a lot of money from the 49ers. I know Goddard may not be Kittle, but he's not that far away. And he'll want paid similarly. So I don't see us giving that sort of money to Dallas Goedert. So it'll either be he'll play it out and then he'll go to free agency and that'll be that.
Yeah, I think that would be my synopsis as well. Sorry, Phil, I digressed us.
No, well, to be honest, I started it. Just to quickly finish off the UDFAs, we've got a couple of running backs, Mick, that came in that you've put down some toys for Coach Singleton to to play with, seeing his videos of going to the White House and doing some memorial ceremonials, which I know is close to his heart with his military background. It was nice to see him, but I bet he's was sat in those ceremonies just thinking about all the tools that he's got at his disposal going into season after leading the Eagles to a Super Bowl with him and his Saquon Barkley partnership. Do you want to quickly just cover the two running backs, or do you want to scoot on?
Scoot on. I don't really know anything about them, to be honest with you.
We'll edit that. We'll edit that bit out. Great discussion about the UDFAs there, Mick. Thanks for that. But last but not least, Mick, have you got a grade for the draft? Have you the overall what if all the beat writers like to give their overall draft grades and that to compete and clickbait with giving low grades or higher grades as they tend to do, but we know that you're not interested in that game. So what's the honest, true overall Philadelphia Eagles draft grade according to Mick Rose of the Draft McGibbon?
Yeah, I'd give this draft is this like an A to D sort of thing?
Yeah.
I would give it a solid B. I don't think it was. I know I've seen a lot of draft analysts and people around NFL media give it an A or A minus or something like that. I don't think I've even seen it as low as a B, which is I know on the pessimistic side, but I don't know. I felt a bit underwhelmed on day 3. I thought there was a lot of talent on the board where we could have swooped in. I mean, what do I know? I'm just a guy on his laptop in Scotland, 3,000 miles away from the action. But just you can't change how you feel. And I think when we took Makuba in the second round, I thought there was better prospects on the board at the time. We could have waited and could have got someone in the third round and took another positional value in the second round instead. Yeah, I just think there was some moves that we potentially could have made that would have made the draft for me better. So I love the first round selection. I think that couldn't be better. That's an A plus selection. But the rest of the draft for me, I don't think mirrors that sort of.
Yeah, I get it. It's like you started on a high and it just kind of slowly on a slow downhill kind of cruise to the end of the draft. There was nothing bad. There was nothing exciting. But like I said, I think Howie didn't seem particularly interested in this draft, and there wasn't a huge deal of need for the team to sort of be making any extreme moves. So there's not any kind of exciting trades to the Cooper DeJean of last year is probably the pick, the moment of the draft, sort of the swooping in. That video gets played all the time of the conversation between Howie and the Washington GM trading up, picking his guy, and he ends up getting the pick six in the Super Bowl. It's sort of like a really fairy tale kind of full circle moment. So there just wasn't anything like that. So I was maybe going to lean maybe more to a B plus, but I'm not going to dispute Mick's assessment because I'm just purely going on the fact that I didn't feel like anything brought me down enough to go down to a B. I'd say B plus, but I don't know about you, Tony. Have you got a grade that you think differs from Mick?
I just wonder whether or not these beat writers have been made such fools by Howie over the course of the years that they're just too scared to give him a B or a C or anything like that, because his capability to draft in the last few seasons is probably second to none in the NFL, and we keep uttering those indelible words of "in Howie we trust." I guess time will tell. I, like Mick, just felt a wee bit underwhelmed, but that was probably due to tiredness, waiting up for the third round pick on Friday night and Saturday morning to find that we traded back again. I'm very excited about Jihad Campbell, and inevitably we're just about to come on and talk about him. But the rest of the guys, I thought we threw a lot of darts in the fifth round at the offensive line, like many other teams had done. But I think I would sit with Mick on this one and say, there's maybe other things that Howie could have done. Surprised I never took a tight end, but I think a B is a fair grade. would be delighted to be proved wrong though, and it comes out in an A when we're sitting here in 12 months' time talking about we're going for a three-peat.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm not gonna dispute against you guys. I'm just probably one of the more optimistic of the three of us. But that's right. We are 40 minutes into the pod, and we haven't even got onto the first draft pick yet. And I'm fully aware of that we'll cover the first sort of 3 or 4 in a bit more detail, and then scoot over the later round draft picks. There's no point spending too much time on them. But obviously, let's start off with the the big one. Like we said, Jihad Campbell, linebacker from Alabama, has experience of edge. So for me, the impression I'm getting is that he's coming out as very much like a hybrid linebacker, edge rusher sort of type deal, and that's particularly why we went for him over a designated edge rusher. And that combined with the injury and the surgery that he had, kind of put him firmly in the Howie bracket, and it makes perfect sense in hindsight to look at the type of player that he had his eye on. Didn't think that he would drop outside of the top 20 as soon as he started sliding, was frantically making calls. I think they had an agreement with the Vikings? Chargers. Yep. That was it. They had an agreement apparently with the Chargers to trade up to 23, 24, whatever it was, to 23, 22. Anyway, but apparently they didn't communicate it properly to the NFL. Therefore, it fell through. So I imagine at that moment Howie was probably, I don't know, 50p, 20p, as I like to call it, with his rear end, because he thinks that he might have missed out on the opportunity to get his guy, but little did he know he's going to keep falling, until pick 31. Finally, the Chiefs answered and go, "You want to give us a pick just to move up in front of us? Yeah, go ahead, and get your guy." They ended up picking Josh Connolly Jr., a tackle that had been mocked a few times to the Eagles, but obviously we didn't end up going, Howie clearly didn't have that on his mind. So that's the story of how Jihad Campbell became an Eagle. Let's get into the stats of it. 6'3", 244 pounds, junior from Alabama. Played his first 3 seasons at Timber Creek High School in Ariel, New Jersey. Transferred to IMG Academy for his senior year. 5-star recruit coming out. 2024 stats: 117 tackles, 8th in Alabama single season history. Tackles for loss, 11.5. 55 yards loss, total loss. 5 sacks, sacking total distance loss of 39 yards. 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery, and 2 forced fumbles. 23 season, 66 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, half a sack, and an interception. So clearly a visible improvement. Title to go in the top 15, like I said, but due to the injury concerns, it has fallen. Second team All-American, first team All-SEC recognition from conference coaches, semi-finalists for the Bednarik Award and Butkus Award, SEC Defensive Player of the Week versus LSU. Breathe. Mick, how... You obviously said that you give it A+ move just a moment ago. Talk us through exactly why Jihad Campbell at 31 is an A+ draft pick for the Eagles.
Man, there's just so much upside with this guy. I know he had the injury, which is why he's fallen down the draft boards, but the guy's just an athletic freak, and he's a freak in the sheets. He's a freak on the field. Campbell,
Menage a trois, freak in the sheets. We're coming out with them all tonight.
But he's just got it all. I love watching him. The thing that annoyed me the most actually when we selected him was I've not looked at this guy. I've not like really delved into him, because there was a lot of guys at the top of the draft. I thought they're going to go too high. I'm not going to waste my time. I've got a lot of other top 100 prospects to go and look at, and who we've brought into the building and all that sort of thing with the top 30 visits. So when Jihad's name was called for the Eagles, I was like, shh, scramble. Whether I know about him, whether I remember. But I remember knowing I didn't look at him because I thought he was too good for us. And the fact that he
That's always a good sign.
Is always a good sign. It's always a great sign. And this guy, as I said in my post draft reaction after the day one, I recorded that at 5 a.m. by the way, folks, so don't be too harsh on me in the video. but I was, I was excited at the time. I felt like I couldn't go to sleep because of it. Just the rush that you get from your first round selection, especially with a guy who is just like one of the top prospects in the draft. You just don't really expect it. But as I said, he's a chess piece. He's a guy that can move about. Is he going to play inside linebacker? Is he going to develop to an edge? He's been, compared to a Micah Parsons. That's the kind of role he played at Penn
we like
State.
to
He was
hear.
he was a Mike linebacker. Then he gained a little bit of weight, and he's moved about the Dallas defense and became like an absolute superstar in the league. And that's high praise to be even talked about in the same sentence as a guy like that. So that this is the kind of caliber player that we're talking about, and from everything I've heard, everything I've read, everything I've watched, he's just a highly intelligent player, and his coverage ability is just second to none. When we think about inside linebackers, that's just something the Eagles never went near. It was something like we've not drafted a first round linebacker since 1970, whatever, before I was born anyway, before you were born, Phil. I don't know about you, Tony, I'm sorry.
That's hard. That's harsh.
Sorry, mate.
Carry on, mate.
But like we just paid Zach Bond, the coverage over the middle is dealt with for the foreseeable, and like there was always my
There's
biggest
certainly been a
fear for
mentality
the last
shift,
few
though,
years.
hasn't there?
Yeah, I
Sorry,
mean for
mate.
the last few years. No, it's fine. But I mean, just it's always been a concern. Like, oh, the Eagles are terrible up the middle. You remember speaking to your good friend Tony from the States, Phil, about he
Mhm.
used to say Gannon's defense just throw over the middle and it's over. No one's throwing on the Eagles next season. It's not happening.
Like fucking tissue paper. Great breakdown, Mick. Happy with that. If you couldn't make me more excited about this pick, you've definitely tried hard there. Like I said, Tony, the mentality shift, drafting linebackers in the first round. Also, the fact that he's obviously touted, I think like the Zach Bourne factor has massively shifted. Do you reckon it's a direct result? Do you reckon he was always going Jahad Campbell? Do you reckon the Zach Bourne situation has maybe completely shifted and go, actually, maybe I should draft a first-round linebacker?
I think there's a couple of ways to answer that, Phil. The fact that he was trying to trade up to position 22 with the Chargers. Now, whether he was trying to trade up to take Jahad Campbell remains to be seen, but you've got to think that as soon as he'd started falling, and Mick, I've got a few questions for you. I'm going to put you on the spot with a couple of things. In a second with regards to trading up and trading into the first round. But you've got to think, Phil, that if he's trying to trade up with the Chargers, that he's got his eye on someone. You've got to think that it's Jahad Campbell, because many of the key talking heads in the NFL have him and still have him as a top 10 talent in the draft. And I guess when you've had such success with Zach Bond, and you've got the Fangio effect, and you've got, as Mick says, you've got this beast of a talent who, and Phil, you've said as well, has flexibility to go from a line back position to potentially an edge, and there's that variation. And when he's running downhill, there's not many people going to stop him getting to the quarterback as well. So we spoke just before we came on the pod about how Howie seems to be a step ahead of other GMs. You just wonder, is he looking ahead to the schedule? Is he looking at the teams that we're going to be playing in 25 and saying, actually, I want to protect us against the pass over the middle against these teams? And he's selected, brilliantly, he's fallen to us, this guy, because we've had so much success with Bond. We could really shore up that position. Makuba at the back, which we'll come on to as a replacement for CJ alongside Reed Blankenship. It kind of solidifies the centre of that park and gives us incredible strength in there. And it's just exciting, really exciting to see how it's all going to pan out. But tell me, Mick, a couple of questions. And the first one's maybe a bit unfair because I really am going to put you on the spot with this one.
Sweet.
Jalen Carter. So Jalen Carter fell 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
Quinion Mitchell fell last season. Not really so much injury related or anything from a Quinion Mitchell point of view. It was just the way that the board fell. Same with Cooper DeJean. The year before with Carter, there was maybe a question about character. But this year, Jihad Campbell's fallen, as you said, as a result of the injury he sustained last year. So what is it about the Eagles, or what is it about GMs when they're drafting, that there's obviously been red flags about Jihad Campbell? Why is it that the Eagles, or why would you think it is the Eagles are willing to take a punt on a guy like that when he's clearly fallen quite far down the board, obviously due to an injury?
Because we can, because we're in such a fortunate position being Super Bowl champions and having such a loaded roster. We don't have to say we need to take. We're not the Chiefs and thinking we have to take a tackle in this first round. We have to take a tackle. How are we thinking? Who's the best player? Who is got all the athletic traits? Who's got everything that we want? And the next generation. He's not thinking about 2025 NFL season. He's thinking about 2027 NFL season. He's way ahead in the future because that's how he plans. That's his
chasing checkers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's just the Eagles' way of drafting, and it seems to be working. I mean, can't really complain.
I think there's an element of if you look at the hit rate for first round draft picks in various positions. I'm always surprised when people talk about it that actually, it's not as high as you think it is. So going for a guy that's a value for the position that you're picking in, so a player that's valued at pick 31, pick 32, probably hasn't got a huge chance of being a particularly great player. So what have you got to really lose by picking a player who the only reason he's fallen to that position is because of something that other people are worried about and puts them off? So I feel like that's maybe been part of his draft strategy over the last few years, as you mentioned with Jalen Carter and players that have fallen for various reasons, that it's just take a gamble on him, because you're probably not taking that much more of a gamble on someone like Jalen Carter because of his character issues, Quinion Mitchell because of his small school status and the way that the draft board fell, whatever, and subsequently Jihad Campbell because he's had surgery. Like, if it works out, the Nakobe Dean situation also falls into that, although he's obviously a third rounder and he has now got injured. But the point being is that, take the gamble on him, because draft picks are a gamble, full stop. Just because the guy's not been injured, goes to a big school, does not guarantee that he is going to be a good player. So I guess maybe Howie's just thinking, take the gamble on a guy that could potentially be incredibly good, because the only reason he's fallen to you is because of a red flag or a minor flag here or there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so let me follow that up then, Phil. Hypothetically, we have traded up to 22 with the Chargers and we take Jihad Campbell. Are you still as happy with the pick at 22 as you are at 31?
It's an interesting question, because obviously in hindsight it feels like we've got even more of a steal than 22 would have been a steal if we traded up, but not as much, obviously. And by trading up shows that you've given, you'd have to give up. I don't know I don't think I've seen it come out what the potential trade involved with the Chargers that nearly went through, because I imagine there's probably going to get leaked at some point what the Eagles were prepared to give up. Likewise with the Russell Wilson quarterback trade came out, what we were prepared to give up for that. I think maybe that's the context that's missing to be able to give an accurate answer. But I think, from my perspective, I don't know enough about Jihad Campbell to know if he would have been a value pick. I definitely think that we would have had more of a split opinion between maybe the three of us and the fan base altogether, going, well, still a good pick, but 22 not as good as picking at 31, 32. So,
Mick?
Yeah, that's it. If you're saying we gave up a third, we gave up a third to get the guy, then yeah, it probably puts more pressure on the player as well, to sort of live up to the fans' expectations, because the fans will have more expectation, having moved up and spent more capital to get him in the building, but knowing that when we move one place, everyone's just delighted. So I think the context totally matters in that, and just how much we give away.
So that's a brilliant segue, Mick. You've just spoken about going from 32 to 31, and this is an educational piece, because I have tried and better tried to explain to people why we would have traded from 32 to 31. And obviously there's the argument to say, well, you just want to make sure you get the guy, and somebody could come in and trade with the Chiefs. They've got the position and then taking him. But Mick, there's an element in the draft, particularly with a round one pick, about the 5th-year option. Just so that I can explain it to people a bit better. What is this all about? A 5th-year option and in the first round, and why would the Giants want to have come back in to secure Jackson Dart so they've got a 5th-year option on him?
Yeah,
what's the importance of it?
It just gives the franchise more control over the players. So normally your rookie contracts are 4 years. Only first round selections are eligible for the 5th-year option. The 5th-year option is calculated based on there's a formula that the league uses in order to determine how much money or guaranteed money that player will make on his 5th year. Which you wouldn't get that with a second round pick. So the second round pick, his 4th year over, he's looking for a new contract. You can't lock him in for another year, unless you could put a franchise tag on him, I suppose. But you can only do that with a certain amount of players. So 5th-year option provides the team with, or the franchise with, more flexibility in order to lock these guys down. The formula depends on how much playing time they've had, which adds on. So there's a base salary depending on the position that they're in. So a defensive tackle, they'll take the salaries for all the defensive tackles in the league and work out an average of the 5th defensive tackle to the 20th defensive tackle, work out an average salary of there. So that's the base. And then there'll be add-ons to that base to say how, if they've played a certain amount of snaps, they'll make a little bit more. If they've made a Pro Bowl, they'll make a little bit more. If they've made multiple Pro Bowls, they'll make even more. So in the case of Jordan Davis, who we spoke about a little bit earlier, he hadn't met the criteria for snaps. He hadn't met the criteria for Pro Bowls. He's not made one or multiple Pro Bowls. So his base salary is the minimum it could be for his positional value as a defensive tackle, which works out to be 13 million. So that's the advantage of having that, and it's very valuable for, say, the New York Giants to have that advantage on a quarterback who, as you know, can make $40-50 million per season.
Good. I might want you to write that down for me at a point in time.
Right. I think it's about time that we scooted on to pick number 2 in the draft, number 64 overall on the night. Did not trade up, did not trade back. We know that Mick has some particular feelings about this pick already, feeling there was still some talent left on the board that we could have gone back for and made better use of it. But clearly, Howie again has had his eye on a guy, Andrew Mukuba from Texas. Safety that I had drafted in a few of my mocks purely because of just where he fell. There's not really a particular reason other than I knew we needed a safety. I felt like it was going to be a day 2 pick. And when I went on the Raw the Lions draft recap, draft preview for night 2, 20 to 11 at night, just before the draft kicked off, and that's exactly what I said to him. I said that safety's coming in round 2 or 3, and it turned out to be Mukuba, who I'd had mocked. So one of those little small wins where you're kind of going, yes, it's someone I had drafted, but I'm not going to take any particular credit because I don't really know an awful lot of the guy. And unfortunately, the guy that I would throw it to break down the player, even though he doesn't necessarily agree, has just had to nip out for a few seconds. So, Tony, I'll read out a few of the stats, but and get your opinion afterwards. But he's played 3 years at Clemson before transferring to the University of Texas, where he earned his 3rd team All SEC honors. And some notable college stats and achievements include he's played 50 games, 43 starts, 212 tackles, 23 pass breakups, 6 interceptions. In 2024 specifically, he had 69 tackles, 7 pass breakup, 4 tackles for loss, 5 interception, which, are definitely notable stats, particularly the 5 interceptions when you're talking at Reed Blankenship NFL stats around that sort of sort of level for him, in contributing to some, especially in college football where they play less games, 5 interceptions in the season is, you're talking at a third to a half of 50% ratio of interceptions to games. Freshman All-American 2021, ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year 2021, third team All ACC 2021, and third team All SEC 2024. Makuba graded it second among all Power 5 safeties in 2024, according to Pro Football Focus. He ran a 4.45 second 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine. The Eagles general manager Howie Roseman has praised Makuba's durability, play style, and ability to make big plays in crucial moments. Have you seen some of the hits that this guy has impacted on the highlight reels that you've seen so far, Tony? He seems like, maybe CJ Gardner-Johnson without the unpredictability.
Without the attitude and without the noise and the pomp and everything that goes with them. Some of the hits, Phil, are absolutely frightening. Can't remember who they were playing against, but they were defending the red zone, the end zone, 3 or 4 yards out, and Makuba made the most frightening hit. How it wasn't a flag, I'll never know. But the guy's an absolute beast, and when you look at the safeties that were drafted, the guys that were on the PFF big boards in front of Makuba, and I'm really interested to hear Mick's take on this one because I know he was really high on Malachi Starks. We were all pretty high on Kevin Winston. Of course, there was Xavier Watts from Notre Dame as well, but there has to be a reason why Howie drafted Makuba as the third safety off the board. I think when you look at some of the tape, you can begin to see some of those reasons. But, I guess time will tell with this one. I think everything that I'm hearing since, there's quite a buzz about this Makuba pick. And I'm really quite excited to see how he shows up in pre-season and in the early part of the friendly games that we'll play in advance. But those tackles, Phil, what ones have you seen?
I think it's the same ones, but it's just generally watching the highlight reels that I've seen. It's like it reminded me of CJ a lot in just those on the times when he did make the tackle, not the times when he obviously whiffed a little bit. But we won't dive into that now. It just feels like he's got that. He's definitely happy to put himself in harm's way, make the tackles that are needed to be made, and he makes them with brute force. So I think he's obviously got a clear path to playing time with the safety room situation that the Eagles have got with Ernie Reed and Sidney Brown as the notable personnel in that room at the moment. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do and bringing that sort of that aggressiveness and that ability to tackle into the Eagles game.
I think with the stats that you read out, Phil, clearly when you've had a guy like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and that's notwithstanding all of the baggage that comes with that and the attitude and things like that, he was a bit of a ball hawk, and when he left to head off to the Chargers, sorry, not the Chargers, the Texans, you begin to wonder, how do you replace that? And of all of those stats that you've read out, Makuba there, the ones that kind of get me most excited is his 2024 season, where he's tied for fourth in the FBS and he's hawked the ball 5 times. That looks as if it could be a natural replacement for CJ, and let's hope that we're nominating this guy as Shagger halfway through the 2025 season.
That is a good shout. We're gonna have to start thinking about our nominations for Shagger going into the 2025 season. Who was it? Was it Reed that we picked on for 2025? I can't even remember who we
for 2024. We went everyone from Quinion Mitchell to Reed to CJ to CJGJ to Cooper DeJean.
I'm pretty sure. I feel like it was Reed, just because I think CJ had his time, and I feel like Reed was just having that quiet season. Mick, I don't know if you can remember who was the Shagger from last season, because Tony's just put his his shout for Makuba being an early nominee for the Shagger title for 2025.
Early candidate, yeah. It's usually the guy that hits the hardest on the field, isn't it? That's what you like to see. You like to, when you're watching the games, you hear the contact, the helmet contact or the pad contact, and it just like resonates around the arena, and it's you're always like, oh,
Yes,
you know, and
and
it gets you
Makuba
pumped
gives
up,
us
man.
that.
Love
We
it.
think, yeah.
So
Makuba
one of my favourite memories of the watch along that we had in Glasgow was when Cooper DeJean hit Derek Henry, and there was this unanimous shout of Shagger coming from all of you guys, and I think DeJean became the Shagger after that moment.
possible.
But I don't think we actually landed on one for last season. But
No.
Mike, we're talking about safeties, right? And Malachi Starks was mentioned earlier on, and you spoke earlier about Kyle Hamilton and not taking Kyle Hamilton in the draft a couple of years back. But tell me this: what was the colour of the air in your house when the Ravens drafted Starks to go alongside Kyle Hamilton?
It was green, I suppose, with just envy. Just ridiculous. Like, how can they have just two quality safeties like that? It's just beyond belief. It's not fair. I say that, I think I put it in the chat at the same time. If the Ravens take Starks, it's just unfair to the rest of the league to have that sort of quality in both the safety positions, because Kyle Hamilton, I think he's been selected to 2 Pro Bowls already in the 2 or 3 years he's been in the league now. That was a no-brainer, absolute no-brainer. He was always going to be like a phenomenal player in this league. Everyone knew it from Notre Dame. We couldn't believe it when he was sliding down the draft boards, and just happens. But yeah, Starks is another one that I really liked coming out, and I think we liked him too because we had him in for a 30 visit, unless that was more smoke and mirrors from Howie Roseman this year. I don't know if I'll be doing the 30 tracker next year, by the way, based on what happened this year.
But you're not better.
It's definitely our most popular visited article on of the launch of PSI, so I think we'll be definitely doing it again because people have definitely found that valuable. And I too, because at the end of the day, it's the biggest indicator for rightly or wrongly what the Eagles are going to be thinking about doing. But yeah, so any last little thoughts, Mick? 'Cause I know you had to dip out quickly on Makuba overall as the pick. I know you're not particularly happy because the draft fell, but just general quick thoughts before we move
Yeah,
on.
I mean, I was just surprised because there was only 2 safeties off the board at the time, and I did have my guy from Notre Dame and the other guy from Penn State rated a little bit higher on my draft board, like Kevin Winston Jr. and Xavier Watts, who went a bit later, and that's what I was sort of getting at when I was talking about the overall draft grade for the Eagles, where I was saying, we could have picked up someone else in the second round potentially at that spot. Like if we picked up, say, Landon Jackson at that point in the draft, and then taken Xavier Watson in the third, I'd have been much happier with it. Sorry, but I would have.
No, that's fair enough. In Howie we trust, in Mick we trust when it comes to assessments of draft prospects. So I'll take your assessment on it. I'm kind of happy with him because of the tape I've seen. We were just discussing the hits and stuff like that. He seems like he's got a good commitment, aggressiveness in him.
He's a bit undersized. That's my only concern. I just don't want to see him getting lost in coverage like CJ did in the red zone. That's my concern.
We managed quite well with CJ Gardner-Johnson last season, so hopefully not too big of a problem. But let's quickly move on then, as rapidly as we can, to the 111th pick, as we obviously traded out of 96th pick into day 3. Early on, we took Ty Robinson, defensive tackle from Nebraska, mate oppo of Cam Jurgens from Nebraska. I mocked him a couple of times to me, but again, my mock is very much who's falling, looking at the players as they are. I quite like the look of Ty Robinson as a later round pick. I think later than 111. Obviously, the Eagles must have had their eye on this guy as well. Robinson played college football for Nebraska from 2019 to 2024, so quite a long collegiate career. The same school who Eagles centre Cam Jurgens was drafted for, as I mentioned. Career stats: 60 games, 97 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 8 pass deflections, 1 fumble recovery, and specifically 2024 last season, started all 13 games, 37 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, 4 pass breakups, 1 blocked field goal, and 1 safety. Couple of awards: All Big Ten honors, second team All Big Ten AP Associate Press, third team All Big Ten Coaches and Media. Mick, since you missed out on Makuba, take us away with Ty Robinson.
Yeah, Matt Rule has been waxing lyrical about this guy since he was drafted. He has not shut up about Ty Robinson and how much he loves him, and how much of a competitor that he is on the defensive line, and how he's going to show up for the Eagles and he's going to get to work. Like he's like a blue collar guy from working class family, working class background. He will fit right in to the Philadelphia city, the city of Philadelphia, and just get to work. Essentially, this guy's a workhorse, and he's a bit of an older prospect. He's 24 years old, which that's not usually how the Eagles draft, or it's not really like how Liam likes them. He likes them young, as we know. We said in this podcast a few times, but I mean, this guy is like, he's barrel chested with wide shoulders, and he's I think he'll complement Jalen Carter on the defensive line really well, and that sort of in a 4-man front. So again, I think it's a pretty shrewd selection from Howie. I don't mind this one at all. He had, what did you say, 6 sacks in 2024, which is decent production.
7 sacks
for the
in
club.
2024.
7 sacks in 2024, which is really good in production actually from the interior defensive line for Nebraska. So no, I think that's one of the ones I was more happy with on draft night, definitely, for sure.
Tony?
I guess the only thing to add is I'm in a few chat groups with guys from Philadelphia, and this was the pick. Everybody was understandably excited about Jad Campbell, but after what was a bit of a quiet day 2, to start off day 3 with him, my phone just lit up with guys who were just super, super excited about him, which kind of took me a bit by surprise. So, going on mixed testimony on Matt Rule's, seeming infatuation with the guy and the excitement that's coming out of Philadelphia for him, you've kind of got to be really optimistic that he's a pretty decent prospect.
Yeah, happy with that. Let's move on then to the next pick, which was Mac McWilliams, which I seriously thought was a joke name when I saw it announced on the NFL Network. Bit like Boatman face, cornerback face maybe. Mac McWilliams, cornerback from UCF, selected in the 5th round, played for the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and transferred to University of Central Florida for a change of scenery as it wasn't working out. Physical attributes: 5'10", 185 pounds. Collegiate career: McWilliams played for UAB from 2020 to 2023. 2023 redshirt junior, started all 12 games, 52 tackles, 9 pass breakups, 2 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, and 6 punt returns for 60 yards. So it's possible special team player in the making. 2024 stats for UCF Knights: 32 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 2 pass deflections, 1 interception, and 25 solo tackles. Additionally, PFF had graded him as UCF's best defender in 2024, and he only started 11 games. 2 of the Eagles' starting cornerbacks are set in stone, with Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, as we know, coming off fantastic rookie seasons. Outside of them, you've got Keely Ringo, and we've obviously picked up Adoree Jackson. The only other corners are Eli Ricks, Parry Nicholson, Tariq Castro Fields, and AJ Woods. Who the hell are they? You might ask. I don't know either. So there's some mixture of talent in there. Obviously, the stellar talent from the Eagles Super Bowl winning season. He's got quite a good shout of getting on the field a bit this season, depending on obviously how he performs in minicamp. But Mick, what's the general consensus around the McWilliams pick, or the cornerback face pick?
Yeah, a bit of a surprise for me as well, Phil. This selection, not one I really had on my draft board. I mean, you can only look at so many prospects over the months, and Mac McWilliams isn't one I really had a look at during the process. So it was more of a slightly underwhelmed when it first came in, but then to go and research the guy, find out what he's all about, have a look at his highlight reel, see what he can do for us. And as you say, there's a path for him to get some playing time in a relatively young cornerback room that we've got. I mean, we've got some young guys in there like Eli Ricks, and he could be starting behind, or Keely Ringo could be vying for a starting position outside. If we keep Cooper DeJean in the slot, it's what we do at that slot position as well, because Avonte Maddox is potentially moving on. I think, is he a free agent? Avonte Maddox, did he leave? I can't remember. It's just totally escaped me.
I think he's gone.
Yeah, so this could be this. I think this sort of positional player. He's brought in rotational snaps, maybe in like big dime packages. Like you want more defensive backs on the field, or a special teams gunner type thing. So I think it's it's a depth piece if nothing else for me. But I like the look of him. He seems feisty. A couple of people that I've spoken about who are right into the draft say it was a really good selection. So I'll take their word for it. You're on mute again, sorry.
You've done it again, Phil.
Sorry, I was just typing at the time. Let's try and breeze through the rest of these picks because I've got a very tired and awake 3-year-old
Well, so
that I need to go and attend to. So what we'll do is we'll quickly breeze through the next pick. Smile Mondon Jr., linebacker from Georgia, another Bulldog we drafted in the 5th round, 161st overall. 6'2", 224 pounds. Some definitely reasonable stats there. PHOR were talking him quite well, Mick. Anything to look at for him? Played with Carter and Davis, obviously in the Georgia team of 2022. Touted as the Oren Books type replacement and a depth piece. Anything to add for Smell Modern?
A lot of people are excited about this pick. A lot of people really like this one. I'm amongst them. I think it's a really nice pick for Howie. Like you said, we lost Oren Bucks. I thought we could have held on to him in the centre of the field, but bringing in some fresh faces, another Georgia Bulldog. I mean, you can't go wrong selecting all these national champions.
So yeah, we've so he should be quite a good depth piece with maybe a possible chance to be on the field, depending on what happens with the rest of the the team in that regard. Going to quickly run through the list of the rest of them and just jump in with comments on either of them. We obviously picked up Drew Kendall, a center / guard from Boston College. Kyle McCord, quarterback, definitely more of a depth piece to compete with Thompson Robinson. Nearly went Robinson Thompson. Definitely not Tanner McKee, who's surely is solidified as QB2. And then a couple of offensive tackles, Miles Hinton from Michigan and Cameron Williams from Texas. Definitely a couple of guys, like I mentioned at the start of the pod, where I think that they're going to be development projects for Stout. Maybe hopefully we don't need them. Maybe we do if they can contribute this season, then great. But I think we're definitely looking ahead, hoping we find a diamond in the rough replacement for Lane Johnson in amongst that, or maybe just a more flexible depth piece. And then I've definitely got to stop and touch on this guy, even though I want to shoot off. But we signed a Virginia Tech guy, guys, and I know how much I bang on and talk about my knowledge of Virginia Tech players and how excited I am about how good a season they have. And they did have a good season. You know, they had a really good game against Miami, so I'm told. But they had 3 guys who got selected in the draft, and we picked one of them. So we picked a defensive end, Antoine Powell-Ryland, defensive end, and suck it, Mick. We signed a player from one of our college teams, and it wasn't yours because you get to miss out every year, and I finally got to take credit somehow that one of my college guys got picked by the Eagles. Obviously, all that's firmly tongue in cheek. I'm just excited that I picked a college team and a few guys got drafted because the last couple of seasons I do. I mean, I need to. Yeah, I do. I really do. I don't like the colours. Anyway, so out of all those guys mix, is there anyone that stands out that you want to particularly comment on? So likewise for Tony before we wrap this up.
I'll just quickly touch on Drew, the centre from Boston College. I think at the time I thought that's a bit of a boring pick, but I think backup centre is probably an underrated need. With Cam Jurgens having congratulations on the extension and all that, but he played through some serious pain in the NFC title game. Obviously, Landon Dickerson, the brotherhood of the offensive line, came in to step up at centre, but we need someone who can play centre, who can snap the ball, and fill in athletically as well, do everything that Cam Jurgens can do, sort of become that mentor that Kelsey was for Jurgens, that Jurgens could potentially pass that on to a true centre, not someone who's just been asked to do that or been kicked inside from guard, like you can't play guard, so we'll just maybe make you a centre. It's not that. This guy played centre only at Boston College. He didn't play guard at all. So I think that's a great depth piece to pick up in a late round pick, and a really underrated pick from Howie, I think. Tony, you got any guys that you like?
Well, of course, I'm going to have to mention a guy from my college team. So
you've got college team, Tony?
Rubbing it in now?
So we have picked up Miles Hinton from Michigan. Go Blue! Now, in terms of his production last year, everything fairly average. RAS score was just under 6. But the really interesting thing about Miles Hinton is that his dad was an offensive lineman picked up number 4 overall in the draft in 1983, and he turned out to be a 7-time Pro Bowler. And his brother also played at Michigan, and his mother played basketball at Northwestern. So he comes from fairly high NFL stock, and if you can emulate what his dad did, then that will be a very nice pickup from Michigan. Thank you very much.
So let's move on to the Notre Dame players that got picked up by the Eagles. And that's the end of the podcast.
Go Blue!
Let's go Hogies. And on that note, I think it is time to wrap up. We've all got various responsibilities to get back to and jobs to get up for in the morning. Thanks ever so much, guys, for joining me. It's been great to go through these draft picks with you, have you both on. Liam, we look forward to having you back on the podcast soon. We'll sign off by saying, if you haven't yet heard about Philly Sports International, please check us out, phillysportsinternational.com, and check out all the developing stuff and all the new features that we've got available to bring Philly sports fandom closer to you outside of the United States, and we're definitely on some big and bright things this coming season. But thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. Thank you, Mick, for coming on and providing some actual credibility to our commentary on the draft picks. Thank you, Tony, for finishing up your busy work schedules and joining me to rib Mick about Notre Dame. Any last points before we? I know it will. I'm hoping it will be, Mick, because I guarantee you when we do finally draft that Kyle Hamilton person in the next few
Jeremiah
years.
Love next year. Jeremiah Love next year. We'll take him.
I guarantee you it will be
is
super
is
sweet.
he the early guy in your board, Mick?
He's a first round running back. First round running back.
Ooh. Well, if we're looking for a first round running back, then that's
We're in trouble.
Right. Any other points, Tony, before we shoot off?
None whatsoever. Thanks. Thanks again to you. Thanks again to everyone who took part in the raffle competition, and for the fantastic money that we've made for Make a Wish to Mick you for donating your Brandon Graham jersey, and well done to Dave Shaw. Dave had a bit of a disappointment at the weekend, but I'm sure he's going to come back bigger, better. He's going to defeat that demon that is the London Marathon. And tremendously for Make a Wish, Dave's made over $2,500. So what an incredible effort, and well done, that man. Sorry, Mick, I cut you off there.
No, mate, I was about to say the exact same thing. So well done, you.
Brilliant.
You did better than I ever could.
Thanks for chipping in with that, Tony. Right, and on that note, thank you very much, guys. Until the next time, thanks for joining me, and go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.